There were a lot of learnings. For the survey process, I think the main learning is just on how to interact with clients and also third parties, because I think that's one of the key skills that as engineers we don't. It's not really emphasized a lot, especially when we are doing our undergraduate programs. They mostly say that engineers just work with machines, but do not really know how to work with people.
Welcome to Mhandisi, the Engineers Podcast. My name is Laurier Newton, a graduate engineer turned podcast host. Mhandisi's focus is to empower the engineer, and each month we bring you an inspiring guest or message. Thank you for spending some time with me today. And now, karibu tuimarike pamoja. Welcome back to Mhandisi the Engineers Podcast. This is Newton, and today we are going to have a guest by the name Anderson. Anderson is serves in the role of the customer manager in PowerGen, and he'll introduce himself. So, Bwana Anderson, karibu to Mhandisi.
Thanks, Newton. I'm Anderson Bett. I'm working at PowerGen Renewable Energy, currently working within the role of customer manager. So the customer manager role basically encompasses supporting our various business units, which are currently based in Kericho, Kenya, Sierra Leone, and Nigeria, to support with site survey, customer survey, customer acquisition, customer engagement, and demand stimulation initiatives. When new team members join these various business units, one of my roles is to train them on our key processes and to also support the existing teams in terms of sharing our best practices, lessons learned between one country to another, and supporting on any new initiatives. For example, at the moment, we are really focusing on selling appliances to some of our customers to improve on demand stimulation. And also, we are focusing on productive use of energy, that is, sales of electric pressure cookers to support modern cooking using our mini grid power, and also connection of bigger machinery such as milling machines and welding machines. So basically, that's my current role within PowerGen. I joined as an installation engineer, and after a year, I made the transition into the customer team. At that moment, as you all know, engineers are flexible people, really open minded. So when the opportunity came up, I decided to join another team member to build up the customer team within the company. So that's a brief intro about myself. I come from the Green County of Kericho, and I'm looking forward to this conversation and sharing more along the way.
Yeah, thank you so much, Anderson, for the introduction. And just before we let the introduction go, you mentioned something about demand stimulation. Would you please explain to us what that meant?
Sure, Newton. Demand stimulation is the process of getting connected customers to consume more energy, and thereafter to utilize more money, which will give the company more revenue. Most of our mini grids, which are solar hybrid mini grids, are connected in rural villages, and most of our customers in these rural villages are farmers, and they previously didn't have access to reliable AC power. So once we connect these customers, we have realized that they don't have appliances to use to basically power to run on the mini grid power. And most of them, due to lack of exposure, do not know of existing these new modern appliances that they can use with AC power. So one of the departments within the company, that is the customer team, one of the main work streams is to stimulate demand, because one of our key performance indicators is to get a particular percentage of ARPU, which is the average revenue per user. And since these customers traditionally did not have access to reliable power and hence didn't have any appliances, that's where demand stimulation comes in, which is basically facilitating the sale of appliances such as TVs, fridges, freezers, fans, electric pressure cookers, which are classified as productive use of energy appliances. We also sell what we call business supporting appliances, such as blenders, to people who want to blend fruit juice and sell it to the communities, and also milling machines, which are the bigger machinery that we sell to the customers. And the reason why we do that, as I mentioned, is to stimulate demand and give the company more revenues, facilitate the customers to use more power, which has a knock-off effect of giving the company more revenues. Yeah, so that's a basic overview of the demand stimulation workstream that is run within the customer team. I'm not sure if there are any follow-up clarifications there, Newton.
Yeah, we will catch up on that a bit later, but that is sufficient enough for now. So, Anderson, this role that you're doing right now is looks in a way to be a departure from the engineering that you did. My understanding is you did a BSc in electrical engineering. Maybe you can elaborate on that.
Yeah, sure, Newton. As I mentioned, I did a Bachelor of Science degree in Mechatronics Engineering from JKUAT. And when the vacancy came up for an installation engineer within PowerGen Renewable Energy, I decided to apply for it. That was back in 2014. I went through the interview process and was onboarded. I worked within the installation team, facilitating installation of solar home systems. At that time, we were mostly focusing on solar home systems and also wind turbines, which were the smaller scale wind turbines, custom built within PowerGen Renewable Energy's workshop, which is in industrial area in Nairobi. And after that 1 year of working within the installation team as an installation engineer, the opportunity came up within the company to take up the role of to formally build the customer team. At that time, there was only one manager who was in charge, sort of put in charge of building the customer team to set up the processes, come up with the SOPs and stuff like that. And that manager, together with some other senior leaders within the company, approached me to support in terms of setting up the customer team. I found it to be an interesting challenge because first of all, we're building a team from scratch, setting up some of processes such as processes with regards to local government engagement, the customer acquisition process, coming up with survey questionnaires and stuff like that. And traditionally, I've been open minded. I'm a really open minded person. I'm open to any challenge. And at that time, since there was this really interesting challenge of setting up sort of a new team because there were no existing processes or any systems before then, I saw it as a learning, a really interesting learning experience that I could further build my skills, which are basically to deal with sales and marketing. As we all know, engineers really need the skills of sales. That's why in most of the companies we have sales engineers. So I also saw it as an opportunity to build on my sales and marketing skills because within the customer team, the one that I was transitioning to, one of the key roles was to go to the ground, engage our solar mini grid customers, explain how our grid works, and basically highlight the key benefits that they will get by being connected to our mini grid. So I also saw it as an opportunity to build on my sales and marketing skills. And since this position was still within the company, I saw it in such a way that even if 1 or 2 years down the line, I wanted to maybe move back to the installation engineer role, that door or rather window of opportunity was still open to transition back. So yeah, basically I saw it as an opportunity to learn more, to build on the sales and marketing skills, and to also learn something different within the company. Yeah, I think that basically sums up the reason why I was opening to taking up this role. And I will say that since transitioning sometime in mid 2015, I found the role really interesting, what I've learned over time, and also, as I mentioned, with some of my current focus of learning about productive use of energy, machinery such as milling machines and welding machines, how they work, how we can better understand like the throughputs and the work outputs of this machinery, the technical aspects. I think to some extent that is still tied to what I learned being an engineering graduate. And also, it's not too much departure from some of my engineering skills. I'm still able to leverage on what I learned from my engineering course towards my current role of understanding how the machinery works and how to sell it to the customers.
Fair enough, understood. So, good to know actually that you're open-minded, and we'll speak to that in detail in a short way. So back to the transition. So you got out of school and your first job was with PowerGen.
Not really. After graduating, I worked within one of the tea factories in Kericho, a factory called Sausati Extracts. Um, yeah, I got it. It was a short-term contract, only about 3 months. I got a chance to learn about some of the interesting machinery within that tea factory. And since I'll say it's a fairly automated factory because some of the machinery have PLC systems are controlled using sensors and transducers. And as a mechatronic engineering graduate, those are some of the machinery that we learned about during the course of our study. And it was also an interesting learning experience. Unfortunately, it was just a short term contract. And once the short term contract ended, because there were no open positions within that tape factory, is when I applied, went through the application process, applied to several companies. And when the opportunity came up within PowerGen, I applied for it and I was really lucky to get it. And I've been there since then.
So we can equally say that Anderson does not do anything called tamaking.
Of course, there was a period of tarmacking. I actually finished my mechatronics program, fifth year, in December 2012. I tarmacked for I think about 9 months, up to graduated around June 2013. I got the 3 months contract in September around 2013. Then around January 2014 is when I joined PowerGen. So not badly off as compared to what some other folks go through in terms of the tamaking process. But fair and less, I'll say I tamacked for about 9 months.
Yeah, but because you had not graduated, we can't really call it tamaking. You're just resting. Yeah. So the next thing would be now we know that PowerGen is a mini grid company, and what attracted you to PowerGen, or rather, what was the process that you went through in terms of even selecting PowerGen as your potential employer? Is it that you thought, okay, this is a new sector, let me get in, try and find a niche for myself? Or it was this cycle that sometimes we know people have that you just apply. The one that will come, God will bless you.
Yeah, great question there, Newton. Yeah, at that moment, I'll say my focus was mostly on these big parastatals. Actually, I was really hoping and praying to get a parastatal position in a position within a parastatal such as Kengen, Kenya Power. There was also a really popular mechatronics company at that time called Beulah, which I think mostly manufactures agricultural related machinery or stuff like that. Basically, I was looking at these big popular companies and parastatals, but I'll say I was really open minded at that time in terms of just looking at what comes up and applying for any and all the positions that are advertised. And one, actually, for the case of PowerGen, it was a really small company that I hadn't really heard of before. I was referred to by a friend that we were with in campus, and actually I think the vacancy was not really advertised. I just had not come across the vacancy. It was just a referral from a friend who told me that there's this small renewable energy company called PowerGen that's looking for engineers. Then he shared with me the link for the application. Then I just went ahead and applied for it. I didn't really know what the company did before then. I didn't really even know that it existed. So after that friend shared the referral link with me, is when I did some research about the company, found that it was a really small startup focusing on installing wind turbines and small solar home systems. And when I joined the company is when I got to really learn and understand what the company does. So I'll say that joining PowerGen was by accident. I didn't really know what it did prior to joining it, and I wasn't really focused on the renewable energy sector before joining PowerGen.
Yeah, so we can also say that was circumstantial. Sometimes when you are out here,
For sure.
you, I mean, life will just sort you, and then you find yourself in a situation where you figure out how to go. So if I've listened to you carefully, it's coming out that one, you're big on learning, and yeah, even being open-minded. So knowing very well that PowerGen was Anderson was a mechatronics graduate. Did you find it difficult actually to fit in the setup that PowerGen had? For example, probably they were using softwares you didn't know, or you got to a position where you're being exposed to new things. How did you approach that? How did you go about learning through that?
Yeah, for sure. I had a bit of challenges fitting in when I joined because the solar components and also what I call the small mini grids, solar mini grids, will say we can fairly say that's a really electrical, mostly electrical engineering space, and having the background of a mechatronics engineer just really focusing on mostly automation and automation electronics such as sensors, transducers, and stuff like that. I had a challenge a bit learning about these electrical components, the inverters, some of the other control equipment such as the battery management system, and all those electrical components and electronics that go towards building of a complete solar home system. So I had some challenges a bit learning about that. But since I was really young, fresh out of say graduation, really eager to learn. As we all know, when you are in your first company, you are just really eager to learn about everything and anything that is thrown to you. So it didn't really take long for me to really understand how these solar home system components work, how they are connected, and all that. It took about period of about a month for me to learn that. Another challenge was maybe learning how to work with people from various cultures and backgrounds. PowerGen is an American startup. At that time, we had about 3 Americans. learning how basically how to work with them, fitting into their work culture and all that. Took some time, but because of the quality that I've continued to emphasize of being open-minded and being friendly, I quickly also learned how to work with people from these different countries, diverse cultures and backgrounds. So, in terms of fitting in, I'll say that it didn't really take long for me to fit in into that company culture and work setup. Yeah, the challenge was mostly on the culture part and learning about these electrical components and how they fit into each other. But I quickly adapted, so I'll say it was not a really major challenge because of the short adaptation period.
Yeah, they say engineers work well under pressure and they're able to find ways for themselves. Yeah, so
For sure.
if you can dig deeper into the learning aspects, was it did it take the route, like for example you would be given materials, go through them, learn through them, or you are given a blank slate? I mean, Anderson is a project. We want you tomorrow to come up with, or rather, you have 2 weeks, deliver to us something, or rather, an example of a drawing of an inverter, for instance, like use AutoCAD or something. Or even you're not being told, you're given a document and said, okay, we need something like this from you. How you're going to produce it is upon you. And therefore, the question is, how did you approach the learning? Again, I know I've asked this before, but let me explain further and say, did you like go to a person who knew it and then now that person taught you, or you went to YouTube, researched, or you got some materials and you were able to go through them, and that way you were able to produce the results that you expected?
I I was really lucky to get a smooth and easy learning process. At that time, the company was really small. Actually, there was only one other experienced engineer and another technician, and it was a team of less than 10 people, I'll say, at that time back in 2014. So there were not really any complicated established system. The experienced engineer mostly did some basic designs because at that time we were also doing some really basic and simple solar home system, mostly targeted towards individual customers, individual people, homeowners. So the systems were fairly easy, designed mostly using systems such as PVC software to design a really basic system. But at that time, as I mentioned, my focus was mostly in the field. So I got some really great hands-on learning experience. The engineer was mostly based in the office, did all the designs, and once they did the designs, they handed over the designs, and me and the technician will go to the field and yeah, and build the systems, basically install the system for the homeowner. So I'll say the learning process was really hands-on at that time. Spent most of my time in the field with the technician. But during the initial period, the 1 or 2 months, went to the field also with the experienced engineer. Got to learn how to install the system, how the components fit into each other, and all that. But afterwards, after the period of the 2 months field learning process, I managed to do most of the installations by myself, together with the technician. And during the rare occasions when I came back to the office, is when I got to learn on how to do the designs, how to size the systems, and all that. Yeah, so a really hands-on learning process, which I really appreciated to quicken my learning process. So over time, the company slowly built much more complex and sophisticated design software and systems, which I didn't really get a chance to learn because I had really transitioned away from the engineering team. But for the 1 year period that I worked as an installation engineer, my learning process was really hands-on, working in the field and learning from more experienced guys. And I'll say that it really quickened my learning process. I think learning by doing things is much faster than just going through theory, which which some of the other companies employ. But I was really lucky that PowerGen is a really hands-on learning company whereby if it's a solar system to be installed, you are given the solar system, you are guided through the process, and you do it by yourself. So I'll appreciate that to be a much quicker learning process that I went through, and I've really appreciated that to this day.
Yeah, interesting to know that. So the technician, what was the arrangement between you and the technician? Like, were you managing the technician, or the technician was managing you, or what was the arrangement?
PowerGen as a company is a company that you will not even if you walked into PowerGen's office right now or even tomorrow, you'll not even know who the CEO is. We don't really have that culture of this is a boss, this is a person that is working with me. The working setup between me and the technician was really a collaboratory one. No clear, sort of no clear structure that the technician would feel that I'm managing him or is supposed to report everything to me. Once we had agreed on the work that we are supposed to do, we will define the work. So, for example, if I was to go up on the roof to basically mount the solar panel into the solar frame and to the roof, I will do that maybe when the technician is working on connecting the battery cables and all that. So it was really a collaboratory type of work whereby before the work we would just agree on what each one of us would do. If anyone encountered any challenges is when we would discuss and share solutions and ideas on how to address those challenges. But we didn't really have sort of that boss and worker kind of setup. It was really a collaboratory one. And I've appreciated that to this day within PowerGen's working culture. We have continued with that working culture of just working together, not really having that structure, having managers and superiors who are very approachable, very easy to interact with and to get ideas from. I'll say the employees who are on a match, maybe one on a lower level, are always also free to share their ideas and thoughts. And they do not feel stifled in terms of sharing what they think and learning also in the process. That was how we worked back then, and I've appreciated that we have continued that culture as a company to this day.
Well, that's actually a good point to note because it speaks to how knowledge is transferred within the company. So let's move a little bit to something to do with your role in 2014. So you're a project engineer in 2014, and one of the things you are doing was to do site surveys. So are there learnings from this that you think you can share?
Yes, there were a lot of learnings. For the survey process, I think the main learning is just on how to interact with clients and also third parties, because I think that's one of the key skills that as engineers we don't. It's not really emphasized a lot, especially when we are doing our undergraduate programs. They mostly say that engineers just work with machines, but do not really know how to work with people. But on the course of doing the surveys and engaging our clients, I managed to learn the key skill of learning how to engage with clients, how to get the right information and data, and also how to win projects basically, because the survey process is also a matter of if you present yourself well to the clients and they gain trust in you and believe that you can do the work well and achieve good results, they basically you get the projects as the sales engineer and also as a company because of the skills that you learn through the survey process and also through the engagement with the clients.
Yeah, so I'm interested to know actually your transition into that role? Because I'm assuming that at this point in time, Anderson is still new. Anderson is still getting into like to actually know the industry, and then now you're out there with the clients. Was there a situation where you probably found yourself face to face with a client who is more knowledgeable than yourself in terms of what you want to sell to them, and then it got somehow there was some friction or something like that? Was there a situation like that, or is there something similar to that that you encountered during that time?
Yes. I think for such situations of maybe having some frictions with clients and customers comes about from dishonesty. Most people, some of the people are not really honest in terms of what they know and what they do not know. I'm also really, say, lucky, or one of my core values is honesty. So, for example, when I encountered a client and they seemed a bit more knowledgeable than I, if they asked a question that honestly I was not able to answer, I was really open in terms of just being honest with them, telling them that I'm not sure about the answer, but I'll research or engage with my colleagues, then get back to you. So I found that value of honesty to be really helpful also in terms of engaging with the customers and also career progression, because if we are honest, we are also able to inform our superiors and managers that we are really not sure about something and request for help and support. And that helps you also in terms of the learning process. You're able to learn quickly, and it decreases the level of messes that you do. Because if you are dishonest and just say things that are incorrect, you'll be known after some time, and that will get you into problems. So the value of honesty is really important in terms of when engaging with clients who are fairly more knowledgeable, and also within the professional setup when engaging also with managers and superiors. So when I was really new and learning, I asked a lot of questions. As they say, there's no stupid question. And for people who have engaged with Americans, that's what they say. They say, ask a lot of questions. There's not really a stupid question. A question is a question. So, as humans and as learners, if we're able to learn that skill of honesty and asking questions, even for stuff that seem to be quite straightforward but not really understandable to you, that really helps. It shows that you are really eager to learn. You are very honest, and that really helps in terms of of improving of your career progression.
Okay, fair enough. The key point there is being honest and stating when you're unsure about things. So let's transition into the position. I mean, your growth now. So after some time, Anderson was, or Anderson is a manager, I'm assuming. So you have probably people who are reporting to yourself. Would you speak to us a little bit about your management style?
Sure. Yeah, when I joined the customer team, as I mentioned, I just had one manager. I started off in the lower positions, basically as a surveyor at that time. PowerGen had won a contract to build some solar hybrid mini grids in Tanzania. And I spent most of 2016 just engaging with customers and leaders in the sites that we were surveying, and the selected sites that we had planned to install the solar mini grids in. So it was a really interesting learning process. I managed to brush up on my Swahili, having worked in having engaging with the Tanzanians whose Swahili is really superb. um, and through the process, I managed to rise through the ranks. Once there was more opportunities, more work to be done, the company hired some more surveyors, and I was put in charge of training these surveyors and managing their day-to-day work. We were still in the field, and I was their team leader. So continuing into 2017, I managed to to manage. I was two surveyors joined the company, and I was given the responsibility to manage them. So I'll say my management style is really democratic. for lack of a better word to describe that. I really value input from my subordinates and the team members that I'm put in charge of managing. And I think communication is a key element that I really value as one of the my management skills. Being really open in terms of what to expect from your team members, sharing with them the targets that you are planning to do, and getting their feedback is really key in terms of getting buy-in and also support and hard work from the team members that you are managing. And that has been my management style so far. It's been an interesting and great learning process in terms of management skills. I managed back in 2019 to undergo through a management course that I managed to also learn a lot from. And also back in 2019, I really got an interesting opportunity to move to a different country, which is Sierra Leone. And I had 6 team members to train and manage. And I'll say that was one of my most challenging management work. Imagine managing guys, new team members who you're also training, and they are from a different country and different culture. So it was a really interesting and also challenging management experience for me. But I'll say that through proper communication, really proper and clear communication, setting the right expectations with your team members, having meetings every now and then. I adapted the process of having one-on-one meetings with every team member once a week, whereby through those one-on-one meetings, we would go through the tasks that they are working on, what they are expected to do, their targets, the challenges that they are facing. Then we'll brainstorm solutions and suggestions on how to address those challenges. And that really helped to improve my management process. I think having regular past checks with your staff members is really key. Setting the right expectation through proper communication, delegating a lot of tasks, not only the simple tasks, but also the tasks which are a bit challenging. That will help your team member to grow. And also assigning some of your tasks to your team members is really key in terms of facilitating also their career progression. If they're able to understand and tackle some of the tasks that you are doing as a manager, basically through delegation, they will be able to build their skills, to understand what you are working on. And when it gets to the time whereby they are supposed to take over from you, they'll be ready to do that. So through the one-on-one process, the one-on-one meetings that I mentioned about with these Sierra Leonean team members, during that 1 year period, I was in Sierra Leone between January to December 2019. Through those one-on-one processes, I was able to identify one of the team members that had sort of the potential to grow into a management role. Because you are able to see the employees who are really motivated, proactive, who are really eager to take on more challenging tasks, and are also able to sort of step into that management role, maybe when they are sent to the field, they're able to, without even being told, they're able to take on the ownership of being the team leader. Through that process, I was able to sort of train one of the team members to take over from me. And I'll say that even after leaving Sierra Leone in December 2019, the team has continued to grow. The one of the team members that I trained to take over my role has been able to work really well. We have seen an increase in the number of team members within the customer team in Sierra Leone. And I'll say that's one of my key management achievements, having onboarded a team from scratch and having built them to be able to do the work by themselves, and also mentored one of the team members to grow into a management role.
Congratulations for that. Just to take you a little bit back, because you got into a position where you're being trained, and then now you've trained others, and you have added value basically to the industry. Now, if you can go back into the course that you undertook, how did you come to identify the need to attend that course? Was it through like your senior told you, okay, Anderson, I see this is a place you need to improve on. Here is a course that you may want to check, or it was Anderson who went out and looked for the course.
Yeah, at that time, as I was reflecting and during my performance reviews with my manager, one of my career goals was to grow into a manager to be able to lead a team. And from the experience of being a team leader in the field in Tanzania when we were doing the surveys, I saw that naturally to be able to transition into a management role and to be a really good manager, skills and courses are really important. Basically, in addition to learning from your manager by observing what your manager is doing, asking questions, learning from him or her, the other key component is also gaining skills which maybe you might not have seen through your manager, and naturally courses come in from there. So I looked for for a course, a management course. I talked to my manager, and he was really supportive to in terms of facilitating me to undertake that course. I took it for about 6 months, and I found it to be really helpful, especially when I was managing the new team in Sierra Leone. So it was a mixture of curiosity and just with the career goals that I had of growing into a manager, I saw it fit to undertake a management course, similar to what most people do with MBS and stuff like that. I just looked for a short course, which was offered by there's an institution called African Leadership Institute or African Management Institute. I can't really remember the name accurately, but they offer such short management courses, and I was able to undertake one which had several modules. So I learned a lot from it, and it really came in handy when I was managing the Sierra Leone team.
So the initiative was yours, and again, it was based on a need.
For sure.
Ah, that's nice. That's nice to know. Now, let's talk a little bit on the delegation bit. Sometimes when you're handling a project, you might not know the exact deliverables. For example, if you're having a complex project. So how okay, one was such a similar situation in your case, or the projects that you've done, you know vaguely actually what you expect to have, and therefore you would just offer the guidance.
Yeah, interesting question. Communication, communication, communication. That's what I'll say. Um, if a project is not really clear and the deliverables are really clear, ask a lot of questions. I think that's one of the key values that I learned earlier on in PowerGen. If something is not clear, ask your manager all the questions. And the good thing, as I said, PowerGen's culture, our managers are really approachable. If a project is not even clear to them, they'll say that they'll confirm, then get back to you. And in the in the rare cases, maybe when we were working on a project that the deliverables were not clear, having regular check-ins were really key in terms of improving the clarity of that project and the deliverables. So, for example, if maybe we were doing a customer, we were onboarding customers, we were signing customers in the field, and we were not sure about deliverables, we will have regular check-ins with our managers and the project owners. That is I'll say at least 2 meetings per week, or even more regular. In some of the cases, we even used to have regular meetings, at least daily meetings, either in the morning or evening, to go through what we are working on, to discuss any issues that were not clear, and to also clarify on the key next steps and the action items. Communication is really key, and I think I've really valued the importance of communication, not only in the work setup, but also personally. Just making sure that you set the right expectation, making sure that if, for example, I was explaining a process or a project to a key team member, one of the ways that you'll know if that team member has understood is to ask them to explain what you have just explained. So I think that's one of the ways that could help you to, even if you're having a conversation with someone, I think by just telling them, "Did you understand what I said? Can you repeat what, not basically the exact word by word of what you are saying, but maybe highlighting some of the key action items, what they understood." I think that also helps in terms of just confirming that someone else has understood something, and that's what I did with most of my team members when I was managing the team in Sierra Leone. I used to, after explaining the project, what they're expected to do, at the end I will ask questions. I just basically ask questions to them to check if they understood. Then, as at the end, I will ask them to recap what we just basically the key action items and the deliverables. I think that really facilitates the understanding of the team member, and also the aspect of having regular meetings with them really helps in terms of improving clarity.
Anderson should actually consider a career in teaching, because that sounds more of going an extra mile as a manager to even prove to your team actually that you care about the understanding, and that we should be on the same page. So now, again, to mention on the communication bit, the success of what you're mentioning, or rather the success of your strategy, pegs on the fact that when you are open to, you had managers who would give their time per se to even listen to you and to explain things to you. So for someone who probably may not have a manager who gives such qualities, what advice would you give them? Or for somebody who is unable to approach their manager, or be in a position to speak to their upline and say, okay, I'm having a problem here, what would be advice to such a person?
Interesting and challenging question. Honesty, I'll say just being honest. I know people have different personalities. Some managers are really stone faced. I've had friends who have told me they have had challenges approaching their managers because those managers are really strict, really tough managers. So, in such cases, what I'll advise people to do is to either approach maybe another manager who has a good working relationship with your manager. But first and foremost, maybe just a matter of having an honest conversation with your manager. No matter how tough someone is, no matter how stone-faced he is, or is or yeah, he is. I'm sure everyone is approachable. You just a matter of how you approach them with courtesy and explaining maybe the challenges that you are facing, providing your ideas, and all that. So, yeah, my first advice is just to be be courageous. Approach them, approach them with courtesy, and politely explain what you are going through, and if you need any help or support. If that doesn't work, I think the second advice is to maybe either look for someone who's a bit superior to your manager, but I know that sometimes causes issues. But if there is maybe a more superior leader within the company, someone who your manager reports to, you could also try approaching that superior leader, explaining your issues, your predicament. If maybe you had requested for some help or support from your manager and you didn't really get it, maybe you could go to that senior leader, that person that your manager is reporting to, and explain your predicament to them, and just politely tell them that request them to find a way to talk to your manager in a way that it would not seem that you are trying to spoil the reputation of your manager or to spoil his job or something like that. Having a superior leader talk to your manager, or even another colleague. If you find that there's a colleague that has a really good working relationship, maybe a fellow manager who has a really good relationship with with your manager, their friends, or something like that. And basically approach your manager's friend, explain your predicament, and request him or her to talk to your manager on your behalf. Yeah, I think those are three main advice that I'll provide to someone who has such a challenge.
Yeah, thank you, Anderson, and great to have you actually give advice in that sense. So let's transition away from serious stuff. So when Anderson is not doing PowerGen work, what is he doing on the side?
Yeah, I'm a farmer.
Okay.
Yeah, so when I'm not busy doing power gen work, I have some livestock that I tend to back at home. As I do livestock farming, I'm into dairy farming. So most of my livestock are dairy cows. My hobbies are also traveling, but I find working in the farm and just watching my livestock and milking them to be really therapeutic. So as most of the people maybe go for vacations in exotic places such as Mombasa or Dubai, I prefer to go back home and just be with my livestock and enjoy the cool weather, the cool Kericho weather, the greenery and all that. Yeah, so that's my ideal. Uh, yeah, my ideal personal things that I do. And of course, there's the common things such as watching movies and traveling from time to time, visiting friends, engaging with family and neighbors and all that. Yeah, but my key main hobby is daily farming.
Yeah, for me it is looking at your cows is what is therapeutic for you, and what a note to bring our conversation to an end for the day. So thank you, Anderson, for being with us, and thank you again for honoring the invite. You're welcome again, and we'll also want to have you in future. Any words for us?
Yeah, thanks, Newton. Newton, it's been a pleasure having this conversation. Um, Looking forward to continuing to engage, even if another opportunity comes up to engage with the audience. I'll be willing to do that. Yeah, but yeah, I've really enjoyed this conversation. And a parting shot to the audience is to always be open minded. Do not say that maybe because you are an engineering graduate, you are just looking for engineering type of job. Always be open minded. Always be eager to learn a lot. I always aim to learn something new every day. And last but not least, like to also advise the audience to develop the culture of reading. Make sure you read a lot extensively. I always, one of my targets is to always read a chapter of a book every day. Uh, any of the books, personal development, fictional novels, non-fictional, and all that. Just make sure you learn something new every day, and I think you'll never fall behind in this life. And be eager to learn. So that's my parting shot. Thank you very much for this conversation, Newton.
Thank you, Anderson, also for showing up. Thank you for being part of us for the day.
That was an important and insightful conversation with Anderson Bett. I am Okello, producer of Mohandisi the Engineers podcast. As this episode winds up, I'd like to take a moment of reflection and share just a couple of my highlights from this episode. My very first highlight was learning about the concept of demand stimulation as a way to get customers to use more energy and thus in essence spend more money and generate extra revenue for the company. It came across that since a good number of PowerGen's customers were in the rural area and would be getting their first access to AC power through the mini grids, they wouldn't necessarily have the appliances to use. And seeing this gap, PowerGen saw it fit not only to supply power, but also ensure the customers knew and had access to the appliances to use this power with. My second highlight is on the aspect of being open to new experiences. While Anderson's undergraduate degree was in Mechatronics Engineering, when the opportunity to set up a customer team arose, Anderson saw this as an opportunity to grow his skills further, as the position would challenge him to grow his sales skills. In the same vein, one of Anderson's career goals was to grow as a manager, and this desire drove him to enroll in a short managerial course that would see him improve these specific skills. Last but most definitely not least is how highly Anderson values communication. This is part of his managerial core. One of the ways that a healthy communication environment is created is by having regular checks with the team when work has been delegated. A communication aspect that I particularly did like was when delegating tasks and describing the work that is to be done, he'd have the assignee give a summary of what is expected as a way to gauge whether the assignment was properly communicated. All in all, this was a fantastic conversation, and I hope you learned something new and had a couple of highlights of your own. Thanks for listening, and I hope to have you listening on the next episode.
If you're hearing this message, you've listened to the entire episode, and for that, we want to say a big thank you. Remember that you can listen to Mhandisi, the Engineers Podcast, anytime, anywhere on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or Spotify. And please leave us a review whenever you listen. Thanks again, and see you next week.